You're watching Caribbean Vibrations, and we're coming to you from the 2024 edition of the CCI Research Symposium. And I'm here with Professor Juliet Daniel, who's the chair of the CCI Research Symposium Planning Committee. Yes. Good to see you again. How are you doing?
I am wonderful, thank you. Happy that day one is over.
Well, I know there's a lot of hard work that you actually put into this. I mean, we've spoke before this. Great program, amazing opening night. But for those who do not know, what is the mission of the Canada Caribbean Institute?
So the Canada Caribbean Institute was founded in 2020 by Dr. Gervin Ferron, who was then president of Brock University, and Sir Hilary Beckles, Chancellor of the University of the West Indies in the Caribbean. And so their original mission and vision was that the Institute would have two virtual leads, a Caribbean lead and a Canadian lead. So McMaster assumed Canadian leadership of the Institute, and then President Farrar asked me to convene a working group of Caribbean researchers to steer the ship of the CCI while I was at McMaster. The mission, I would say, of the CCI is to bring together various stakeholders that are passionate about issues pertaining to both regions, Canada and the Caribbean. So whether it's economic, environmental, societal, you name it, things that are in common between the two of us that we can both learn from, share, and design and develop strategies and approaches to mitigate the challenges we're both facing.
It's an unprecedented issue for persons from the Caribbean and small island developing states. As I said in my presentation, we have the biggest burden of climate change that is imported to us from industrialized countries. Well, the United Nations signed an agreement with many countries, whereas they would come together and give us $800 million to assist us with the climate change crisis and also disaster recovery. Now, the overarching question is, how do we get these industrialized countries to pay? How do we get these industrialized countries to give us this money, which will then assist with our national debt and deficit, which will assist with the rebuilding efforts of communities and houses and agriculture and our coastal ecosystems? And so that is one of the questions that we would definitely be discussing here at CCI. Is there a need for persons who have an interest in climate change, the advocates and the activists, to come together and urge their politicians of various industrial countries to submit these funds to small island development states to assist with our economic development and to assist us with paying off the debt, because it's a vicious cycle. It's a cycle such that you rebuild and you restore, you rebuild and you restore, natural disaster, hurricanes, you rebuild and you restore. So we definitely need some assistance, and we also need some climate justice as far as this is concerned, this crisis is concerned.
What can we as a Caribbean diaspora help or do in regards to climate change in the region?
I think perhaps the primary role is advocacy, to get the idea out to the global community that people in the Caribbean are not the cause of the climate crisis, but that we are the victims of the climate crisis caused by industrialized activity, enterprise, and caused by the lifestyles of people who live in large metropolitan centers in developed countries. It is important for those people to understand that in our region, it isn't just for us a conversation about a crisis. It is the fact that Dominica lost 126% of GDP in 5 hours during Hurricane Maria. It is the fact that Hurricane Beryl left 95% of the property, the housing, the structures decimated in 6 Caribbean islands in a matter of a few hours. It is about the fact that people are dying, that livelihoods are being lost, that our way of life is being changed and not for the better. And therefore advocacy is important. Advocacy that brings pressure on the international community to understand those who caused the problem must bear some responsibility financially for affecting the resolution to the problem for those who are severely and adversely impacted by what is happening across our region.
This is our third symposium, and this one is looking at climate change and what can we do to combat climate change. At McMaster, We actually have a nuclear reactor.
Yes,
And so we've run one safely for 65 years. It's a research reactor. We want a small modular reactor. We want to turn our entire campus into a small demonstration project for what a small island state would look like, run with nuclear power and electricity from the nuclear reactor, as well as taking the heat from the nuclear reactor for district heating. So we're looking at the university as a model for a small island state and what that might look like to be entirely carbon-free.
I see the research dollars at work. This is amazing. I want to thank you for your time and all the hard work you do with the CCI.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thanks again. And you're watching Caribbean Vibrations.
Caribbean Vibration.